I'm glad you can join me here. This is an interesting process that we're dealing with, the interpersonal skills of individuals and how they deal with people. But the approach that I have here is a little bit different. You'll probably notice on the right-hand side, I have a lot of little bitty slides on there, and I would like to talk to each one of these or talk about them. And let's see if we can explore this concept of interpersonal skills. You got to remember there are other things associated with the individual. It's intrapersonal, which means you're looking into yourself. And you're actually only dealing with yourself if you do that. But if you have to deal with at least two people, then you're talking about interpersonal skills. Let's take a look at one of these things and see what we can discover about it. What is interpersonal communication cycle and the process? Well, as we mentioned in one of the previous discussions, we found that interpersonal skill is regarding two people. It's when the sender and the receiver and the message is there. The sender encodes the concepts, and then he then in turn sends this in terms of a message over to the individual. And in this message, you have certain things associated with it, like the face-to-face and so on and so forth, to this particular receiver. And the receiver then in turn decodes that message. He encodes it, decodes it, and then he sends feedback back to the original source. Now, that being said, let's look at why this particular concept is important. Let's look at something here on this palette and see if we can open this guy up and see what he has to tell us. Well, we're playing around with him. Can't seem to be able to get him to do what we want him to do. Well, put him aside here. Again, we have the same situation with people skills. At this point, since I can't get it open, I am lacking in the people skills. So people skill, again, infers that we have more than one person here. And because we have more than one person, we need to have these people skills. And these people skills are the social ability, and not only sending messages back and forth, but the ability to listen to what the other guy has to say as well, too. So, let's take a look at this, put it aside, and see if we can also discover other skills that are associated with individuals. Okay, interpersonal skill is there to help us develop leadership. And in developing leadership, you need to learn how to take this skill and begin to network and create a team. If you study all of these little elements inside of each one of the categories like leadership, mentoring, decision-making, delegation, and motivating others, you realize that, hey, that's really necessary for an individual to be a leader. But once he has obtained that, then he begins to network and he builds himself self-confidence, and as well as the people he's dealing with too. The network building, you get these two people together, they form a team, you build a network, and you effectively train each one of the individuals on the team to be good communicators. And then once that's done, you realize that, hey, we got the team now, and we're mentoring each other, we're working in groups, we're making decisions, we're delegating, and we're collaborating. So that is the interpersonal skill use that we are moving with. All right. Now, as you can see, we have different topics here, and these different topics can be addressed. What are interpersonal skills? Well, these are skills that helps an individual communicate and interact with an individual or a group of people. And when he does that, it tends to be in such a way it creates optimism. That means everybody feel that, hey, we're going to be able to get this job done, and we can do it in a very calm and orderly manner. And we build confidence in each other and in ourselves when we go and proceed into this. Here's another idea as to what we can relate out of that. But wait a minute, before we do that, let's try this guy. Okay. open him up. What do we need to do here? Well, we can come back to him later. How about this one? Here we see. Good leaders are constantly polishing their verbal and nonverbal skills. We realize that, hey, from our last lecture, we discovered that verbal and nonverbal skills exist. Verbal, obviously, is when you put out a message. Nonverbal is the message that we send out, but we don't use voice to do that. These skills are used to create the desired impression, both positive and negative. If we do it wrong, we're going to really create negative impressions. The words that we choose, the words, the way they are expressed, the tone, and so on and so forth, and in totality, all have an impact on creating the message that you send across. So in doing so, you will get that first impression that will carry considerable value. If it is right, it's the result of a positive relationship. So here you see that we do have several concepts that we are dealing with, and these concepts help us create the ideas of interpersonal communication. But back to the verbal side of it. We talked about that earlier, but now we talk about the nonverbal side of it. Nonverbal side of communication and in developing our interpersonal skill has to do with our appearance, the hand movement, the paralinguistic, which is really the tone and the sound of your voice, how loud it is, and so on and so forth. The facial expressions, the eye contact, posture, the way you cross your arms, your legs, etc. And in this, these nonverbal communication do express a large majority of the message that you're trying to send across. In fact, it's noted by many observers that nonverbal communication represents more than half of the communication that is sent across in the interpersonal relationship. Now, that being said, along with this, you also see some of the things you should avoid in body language, like, for example, crossing the arms and carrying books and stuff across your chest, which shows that you're closed in. When you have a slump posture, you're sitting perched on the edge of a chair that you're waiting to go. Hey, while that's mentioned, let me tell you something about the deacon's chair. The deacon's chair was a chair that was put in the hallway of some of the more respectable churchgoers. And the reason why it's called a deacon's chair is the fact that a lot of time when you didn't attend church, the deacon would come over and ask and discuss with you why you hadn't come to church that day. But when he was sitting in that chair, the chair was tilted a little bit forward in such a way that would it force him to say, "Ooh, I'm comfortable, I need to leave now." So, well, that's a piece of side information, but it does show that while you're perching yourself on the edge of a chair, it does show that you are sending out a body language, wringing your hands, tapping your toes, nervousness, rocking your legs, drumming your fingers, biting your nails. All of these little things tend to show nonverbal communication. So these are the elements that we talked about, and it's some of the consideration that you should be taking when you are, in essence, considering interpersonal communication, that is between two people. I appreciate your listening. Let's move on.